Of chemistry, myself Patil Jayashree. Today we study the spectrophotometry. So let us begin with the introduction of spectrophotometry. In that we study the first electromagnetic radiation and interaction of radiation with matter. So electromagnetic radiation is generally considered for the spectroscopy. So what do you mean by spectroscopy? Spectroscopy is one of the most useful and promising technique used for the study of atomic and molecular structure. It is the branch of science which deals with the study of interaction of electromagnetic radiation with matter. During such an interaction, the energy is either absorbed or emitted by the matter. This absorbance or emission of the energy in a discrete manner is called as quanta. So, electromagnetic radiation may be considered as a simple harmonic wave propagated from a source and traveling in a straight line except when reflected or refracted. This radiation will be associated with the properties of wave. Okay, so let us begin with the what do you mean by quanta. Quanta, I already telling you, the interaction of energy is either absorbed or emitted by a matter in a discrete amount is called as quanta. So what do you mean by wavelength? Generally wavelength is denoted by lambda. It is a distance between the two successive maxima on an electromagnetic wave. Its unit is nanometer, centimeter or angstrom. Generally conversion of this unit is follow most of the time for solving the problem. You know very well that 1 nanometer is equal to 10 raised to minus 9 meter or 10 raised to minus 7 centimeter, or it is equal to 10 angstrom unit. So let us begin with the next term, that is nothing but the frequency. Frequency is generally expressed in nu. The number of complete wavelength unit passing through a given point in unit time is called as the frequency of radiation. Generally 1 Hertz is equal to 1 cycle per second. The unit of expression of the cycle is second or in Hertz, per second or in Hertz. Okay, next is wave number. Wave number is represented by nu bar. It is the number of wave per centimeter in vacuum, or sometimes it is called as a reciprocal of wavelength. Next is the unit of the wave number is reciprocal distance, and therefore it is represented by per centimeter, which is the name of Kaiser, and it is assignated or abbreviated as K. Therefore 1 K is nothing but the 1 per centimeter. Now we have to study the relationship between the frequency, wave number and wavelength. We know that E is equal to h nu. That is our equation number 1. But we know that nu is equal to C upon lambda. C is nothing but the wavelength of light and lambda is the wavelength. So put the value of nu in the equation number 1. We are getting E is equal to hc divided by lambda. Now we know that nu is equal to 1 upon lambda, that is frequency. Again we put the equation, we are getting the equation that is nothing but the E is equal to sc nu. Now we have nu is equal to C upon lambda, then nu is equal to C or nu is equal to nu upon C. The above equation relates the frequency and wave number. Means nu bar, that is nothing but the capital Nu, is equal to 1 upon lambda, that is the reciprocal of wavelength. Sometimes it is written as an nu divided by C. Here the bigger nu is nothing but the nu bar, that is frequency. On the basis of this particular relation, we solving the problem in the next lecture. Now we focused on terminology used in absorption measurement. There are different type of terminology useful in the spectrophotometry. Let us begin with each. First is the radiation energy. It is defined as the energy transmitted as an electromagnetic radiation. It has the property of both particle and wave motion. The characteristic by the wavelength and the frequency, you know the relationship between the wavelength and frequency is nu is equal to c upon lambda, where lambda is nothing but the wavelength in centimeter, nu is the frequency in per second, and c is the velocity of light. The wavelength may be expressed in angstrom, nanometer, micrometer depending upon its magnitude. The micrometer is the preferred term in place of old term micron. Similarly, sometimes we are using the nanometer or millimicron for the expression of the wavelength. Electromagnetic radiation possesses a certain amount of energy, and the energy of a unit radiated, which is called as a photon, and it is related to the frequency. So E is equal to h nu, that is the Planck equation, and we are getting the solution of this particular term. We are getting E is equal to Sc divided by lambda. Here we are putting the value of nu, that is c upon lambda, where E is the velocity of light, E is the energy of the photon in ergs, and h is the Planck's constant. Generally, shorter the wavelength or greater the frequency or greater the energy, the gamma ray, X-ray region are higher energy, while radio or microwave region are of lower energy of the spectrum. They have the relationship between the energy and its region. Now we study the second point, that is nothing but the radiant power. It is generally denoted by capital P. It was formerly known as an intensity, and you know very well that intensity is represented by capital I. Energy per unit time is called power. Radiant power is the rate at which the energy is transported in a beam of radiant energy. It is quantitatively measured by a detector such as a photocell or even thermocouple. The radiant power incident upon a cell is given by the symbol P0 and that transmitted by the cell P. In this particular point, we study the energy per unit time is called as a power. Then when radiant power incident upon the cell, it is denoted by the symbol P0 and transmitted by the cell is denoted by the P. That both terms are useful in the next definition, that is nothing but the transmitters. It is simply the transmitters is generally expressed in capital T. It is simply the fraction of the incident power transmitted by a sample. It is the ratio of radiant power transmitted by the sample to the radiant power incident upon the sample, and therefore we have the expression %T is equal to P upon P0 into 100, or if we are taking only the ratio, T is equal to P upon P0. P is nothing but the radiant power transmitted by the cell, and P0 is the radiant power incident upon the cell. Next is absorbance. Absorbance is denoted by capital A. It was formerly known as an optical density OD or extension, which is represented by capital E. The absorbance is nothing but the logarithm to the base 10 of the reciprocal of the transmittance, and therefore it is represented as A is equal to log to the base 10 and reciprocal of transmittance. Sometimes it is also known represented as A is equal to minus log to the base 10 T, or also represent as, put the value of T here, we are getting A is equal to log to the base 10 T to the base 10 P0 divided by P. P is nothing but the radiant power incident upon the cell, and P is nothing but the radiant power transmitted by the cell. Here is only we are putting the value of T. Both this particular mathematical expression is useful for solving the problem in this particular chapter. Next is absorptivity. Absorptivity is represented or denoted as small a. It was formerly known as an extinction coefficient or specific extinction. Absorptivity is the ratio of absorbance to the product of the length of optical path and concentration of the sample. It is mathematically represented as A is equal to capital A divided by B into C, where small a is nothing but the absorptivity, capital A is the absorbance, B is the path length, and C is the concentration of that particular sample. Sometimes it is also called as a specific absorbance because absorbance of the solution, unit concentration or unit path length. Path length is always defined in terms of centimeter and of concentration in gram per liter. Next is molar absorptivity. It is denoted by epsilon. It was formerly known as molar extinction coefficient or molar absorption coefficient. Molar absorptivity is nothing but the product of absorptivity and the molar weight of the material. It is represented as epsilon is equal to A into M. M is the molecular weight of the substance, and therefore we put the value of A, that is nothing but the absorptivity. We are getting the equation epsilon is equal to capital A divided by BC into M. And the last term which is used into the spectrophotometry is path length. It was formerly denoted by small l or d. It is an internal thickness or diameter of the cell in which the test sample is taken. So student, in this particular slide we study the terminology used in absorption measurement. You have to focus on each and every term because from their mathematical expression we solve the 1 marks question in the next lecture. So now we study the fundamental laws which is used in the spectrophotometry. Fundamental law of photometry. Fundamental law of, before starting the fundamental law of spectrophotometry, we have to know that when light, that is nothing but the monochromatic source or light source, is incident upon a homogeneous medium, the sample given is homogeneous medium, a part of radiant power incident, that is nothing but the P0, is reflected and transmitted light is a part of absorbed medium PE, and remainder is transmitted, and therefore we are getting the total P0 is nothing but the radiant power incident light. P0 is equal to PR plus PA plus P. PR is the radiant power reflected, PA is the radiant power of absorbed light, and P is the radiant power of transmitted light. This is the basic principle of the fundamental law of photometry. Beam of monochromatic light or incident upon the sample, and then sample give the transmitted radiation. Okay. Next is basic law of photometry. There are generally 3 fundamental law of photometry. First is the Lambert's law, second one is the Beer's law, and third one is the Lambert-Beer's law. So what do you mean by Lambert's law? When a beam of monochromatic light is allowed to pass through a transparent medium, the rate of decrease of radiant power with the thickness of medium is directly proportional to the radiant power of the incident light. So here we are getting the thickness of the medium, and therefore rate of the absorbance is equal to capital A is equal to K1 into B. K1 is nothing but the rate constant for this particular law. So mathematically it is expressed at A is equal to K1 into B. Its expression is already given in your book. For the examination, the topic, particular topic is used for the problem solution. Next is Beer's law. When a beam of monochromatic light is allowed to pass through a transparent medium, the rate of decrease of radiant power with the concentration of the medium is directly proportional to the radiant power of the incident light. The major difference between the Lambert's law and Bayer's law is what in Lambert's law we consider the thickness of the medium, that is B, and in Bayer's law we are considering the concentration of the medium, that is C. So this law is mathematically expressed as A is equal to K2 into C. A is nothing but the absorbance, K2 is the rate constant, and C is the concentration of the solution. Now in combination we study the third law, that is nothing but the Lambert's-Bayer's law. As the name suggested that this law is the combination of both Lambert's law and Bayer's law, and it deals with the relationship between the radiant power of the incident light and transmitted light as the function of both thickness of the medium and concentration of the absorbing species. So therefore we write the Lambert-Bayer's law constant, and we are getting both the term in the mathematical expression, that is absorption is equal to A into B into C. A is nothing but the concentration term, that is the constant, and B is the thickness of the medium, and C is the concentration of the medium. This three equation is useful for the problem solving. The problem based on this particular point we are studying in the next lecture. Let us study the instrumentation of the spectrophotometry. In the instrumentation, there are generally 5 steps are considered. First one is the radiation source, second one is a monochromator, that is filter, and third one is the solvent or solution from which the radiant energy get passed. Then fourth one is the detector, and from detector we are getting the readout system or reading of the particular solution. Let us see the particular instrumentation one by one. In that first one is radiation source or radiant sources. In the visible region, that is near about 400 to 800 nanometer, a tungsten filament lamp is used most widely. Its construction is similar to those of the household lamp. It consists of the piece of tungsten wire which is heated in a controlling atmosphere to avoid the fluctuation into the reading. It is necessary that the tungsten lamp should be provide constant radiant energy. This is achieved by employing the constant power supply to the lamp. The construction of the tungsten filament lamp is very simple and production cost is also very low. It has a major drawback is what it emits the major portion of radiant energy in near to the infrared region, and therefore its operating temperature is near about 1725 degrees Celsius. It gives only 1% of radiant energy to the visible region, and at 2725 degrees Celsius it gives only 15% of the radiant energy into the visible region. When we are using the tungsten lamp, we are considering the radiation source into the higher temperature, then we are getting the more radiant energy in the visible region. That is the necessary condition. The tungsten filament lamp having the low life when temperature is very high, means it is less stable at the higher temperature. Therefore at the moderate temperature we are using the tungsten lamp for the infrared region. Sometimes tungsten filament lamp may be replaced by the carbon arc when more intense source of visible light is required in our instrumentation. Ultraviolet spectrophotometer, hydrogen lamp, deuterium lamp, then xenon discharge lamp, mercury arcs are generally used as a radiation source into the spectrophotometry. Radiation source selected on the basis of some of the requirement. It should have the stability. Then it must produce the sufficient intensity of radiation so that the transmitted intensity can be detected at the end of the optical path. And last requirement for it was it must supply the continuous spectrum of radiation over the entire wavelength in which it is used. The control of the radiant power is depend upon an intense and narrow beam of radiation is required in the colorimeter or in spectrophotometer analysis. For this purpose, mirror, lens, slit are used, and mirror can be used to deflect the light in the desired direction and extend the path length of the beam inside the instrument. The lenses can be employed to get the intense and parallel beam of light. The slit are generally used are of two types. First one is the entrance slit and second one is the exit slit. The slit control the amount of incoming and outgoing light, and therefore we can control the radiant power. Use of device gives some advantages. The particular radiant power obeys the Beer's law. Next, interference of the stray light is avoided and sensitivity of the measurement gate increases due to the implementation of the entrance slit and exit slit. This is all about the radiation source which is used in the instrumentation. Next point is filter and monochromator. Generally, filter used are of two types, absorption filters and interference filter. A radiation source is generally emitted a continuous spectra, that is gives all possible wavelength of region. However, a narrow band of wavelength is always necessary in colorimetry or spectrophotometer analysis, and therefore we are using a selected device, that is to select the narrow band from the wavelength of continuous spectra. Radiation source gives the continuous spectra, and from that we can select the narrow band of wavelength, and for this purpose we are using the filter and monochromator. Generally, the filter is a device that allows the light of required wavelength to pass but absorb light of the other wavelength wholly or partially. Thus, filter can be selected the particular wavelength of band. There are generally two types of filters we are using. First one is the absorption filter and second one is the interference filter. Let us begin with the absorption filter. These filters work by the selective absorption of unwanted wavelength. This filter limits the radiation by absorbing the certain portion of the light spectrum. The selective absorption is considered here. Means here we are using the polychromatic light as a source, and from that we have selected only a single wavelength of light, that is nothing but the selected wavelength of light. Okay, suppose polychromatic light range is near about 400 to 750 nanometer. From that filter, absorption filter, select only the lambda of 500 to 560 nanometer. It is of selected wavelength of light. I hope you are clear with this particular concept, that is absorption filter. There is larger source of wavelength of light, and from that we can select only a selected wavelength of light. So let us begin with the interference filter. This filter generally provides somewhat narrower band width than do the absorption type of filter. In order to prepare the filter, semi-transparent metal film is deposited on a plate of glass, and then it is coated with a thin layer of some tri-electric transfer material like magnesium fluoride, followed by another coating of the thin film of the metal and another plate of the glass, that is the mechanical protection. Okay, the actual construction of the interference filter is given here. That interference filter, this filter work under the interference phenomenon at the desired wavelength, the neglecting unwanted radiation by the selective reflection. Means two plate spacer are here, and that spacer rule is what they neglecting the unwanted radiation by the selective reflection. What happened when a ray of light is incident upon it, part of the light get reflect back, whereas the remaining light get transmitted. The part of the incident radiation is reflected repeatedly by the semi-transparent metal film, but at each reflection some radiation are transmitted out. The outgoing radiation undergo constructive interference for those wavelengths which are exactly even multiples of the distance separating the two metal film. For remaining wavelength, the radiation beam undergo destructive interference, and thus corresponding energy is not passes but By varying the distance between the two metal film, wavelength range can be modified. In this particular interference filter, the equation of the wavelength of transmitted light is used, that is nothing but the m lambda is equal to 2dn sin theta. M lambda is equal to 2dn sin theta, where we know well that lambda is the wavelength of transmitted light, m is the order of reflection, and d is the distance of the two metal film separated, n is the refractive index of the spacer, and theta is the angle of incidence. By using this equation, we can easily find out the wavelength of transmitted radiation into that particular instrumentation. In short, you know that in that particular case, we are using the narrower band of the wavelength. Now, the monochromator. A monochromator is a device which converts a polychromatic radiation to a monochromatic radiation. Usually, monochromator consists of entrance and exit slit to restrict the unwanted radiation and help to control the spectral purity of radiation emitted from the monochromator. In this particular diagram, you see that there is at the start the entrance slit, and at the end, that is A and B, is the exit slit. Lenses or mirror to make the beam parallel or to focus the radiation. There is columnating lens is used here, and what is its function? It make the beam parallel and focus the radiation. The dispersing medium like prism or diffracting grating to isolate the wavelength from the polychromatic radiation of the source. The function of prism is what? To isolate the wavelength. Okay. So, in monochromator, we are first study the prism. A prism is a suitable dispersing element that can isolate a selected band of the wavelength. It is a triangular shape, as in this particular diagram you see the first point. Then it is a triangular shape of the glass which is made up from the glass or quartz. Light is admitted through an entrance slit, then it is columnating with the lens. It enters into the prism and gets dispersed by the refraction. This particular point is explained in this particular diagram. Light is refracted to the different degree depending on their wavelengths. The shorter the wavelength are reflected more than the longer wavelength. Any desired portion of the resulting spectrum can be made to pass through the sample by the rotation of the prism. Okay, usually normal glass prism are used for the visible region, quartz for the ultraviolet, and the alkali halides for the infrared region. Different type of material is selected for the preparation of the prism on according which region we are going to use in the instrumentation. Okay, then next is the diffraction grating. Diffraction of the radiation from the grating. This particular diagram is useful for it. A diffraction grating is a suitable dispersing element that can isolate a selected band of the wavelength. It is prepared by carefully etching a large number of parallel equidistant grooves. The distance between the grooves is denoted by small d here. The D used for this is the grooves of the equidistance is highly polished metallic surface like of aluminum. Generally 15,000 to 13,000 lines per square inch are drawn for the ultraviolet and visible region. That lines are nothing but the grooves. The grooves act as a scattering center for the ray of incident on the grating. This light is diffracted or spread out over the range of an angle in a certain direction that are explained by the R and I, incident and radiated. Okay, thus the light is diffracted and spread out at certain direction. Reinforcement or constructive interference may be generally takes place, and it is explained in that particular figure. the equation that relates the distance, that is nothing but the d by an adjacent groove, and wavelength is lambda, and it is explained by the n lambda is equal to d into bracket sin I plus sin r. Here the d is the distance between the adjacent groove, I is the angle of incidence, r is the angle of diffraction, and n is the integer corresponding to the order of radiation that is diffracted. What happened here when a polychromatic radiation is incident upon a diffraction grating? The above equation can be useful, that is nothing but the n lambda is equal to d into sin I plus sin r. Can be satisfied for a single wavelength at a time. Rotation of the grating to change the angle of incidence I will bring each wavelength in turns to position to satisfy the equation. This result to give a monochromatic light. So what is the role of diffraction grating? Diffraction grating can rotate, and they can follow the law, particular equation, that is n lambda is equal to d sin I plus sin r, and that give, if our light, incident light, follow this particular equation, then we select the particular wavelength of light, that is nothing but the monochromatic beam. The construction of the grating is very costly and difficult, and therefore replica grating are prepared for the original grating. It is prepared by coating the original grating with the film of an epoxy resin, which after setting is removed to form a replica. This replica thus obtained is made reflective by aluminizing its surface. Advantages of the prism is that they undergo dispersion, giving the wavelength which do not overlap. But the disadvantage of the prism is that they give a non-linear dispersion. This can be compared with the grating. The grating gives a linear dispersion, but they suffer from the overlap of spectral order. So sometimes we are using the prism, and sometimes we are using the diffraction grating for the selection of the wavelength of light. That is nothing but the from conversion of the particular wavelength polychromatic into the monochromatic light. Next is cuvette or sample holder. The cell holding the sample or solvent should be transparent to the wavelength region under the study. The cell is called as a cuvette. The cuvette made up of glass or quartz, it is used in the visible region, and that made up of the quartz in the UV region. The cuvette may be rectangular or cylindrical in shape. The internal distance and diameter of particular sample holder is near about 1 centimeter. So in short, cuvette or sample holder is useful, that is for the sample which is going to analyze it put in that particular sample holder tube. So next point is what? Detector. Detector used in the spectrophotometry are of three types: photovoltaic cell, phototube, and photomultiplier tube. Let us begin with it. Let us begin with the photovoltaic cell. The cell is also known as the barrier layer cell or photonic cell. In this particular cell, radiant energy is fall on it and generate a current at the interface of the metal and semiconductor. Here is the metal and here is the semiconductor. Means first layer is of metal and second layer is of semiconductor. It operates without the use of battery, and the typical photovoltaic cell is represented in this particular figure. Let us begin with it. When the radiation is incident upon the surface of semiconducting material, this is the radiation source and which is incident upon the semiconductor material like selenium. Electrons are generated at the selenium and silver interface. This is the selenium and silver interface. There is generation of electrons, and that electrons are collected by the silver metal plate and accumulate on the silver surface. Means at the first layer, that is it made up of the silver surface, and that surface that collect all the electrons generated at the interface of the semiconductor and metal. So it creates an electric voltage difference between the silver surface and the base of the cell. There is difference in the voltage between the base and the silver surface, and that is recorded by the external circuit has a lower resistance, and therefore photocurrent flow through the outer circuit. Here is the outer circuit and photocurrent is flow in this particular circuit. The magnitude of the particular photocurrent is recorded by this galvanometer. Okay, so in this particular case, the magnitude of the photocurrent is directly proportional to the radiant power incident radiated by a beam. Means how much amount of the radiant power is incident in that particular case, it is directly proportional to the current. Means I, that is nothing but the photocurrent, is directly proportional to the radiant beam. Radiant beam. So in the next point, we study the characteristic of photovoltaic cell. It is completely different in the design and principle of the photoemissive cell and the world without the use of battery. The main specialty of this particular photovoltaic cell is what? It is operate without the use of battery. The cell generates their own EMF, electromotive force. The magnitude of the photocurrent is directly proportional to the radiant power incident or radiated strike on it. That is, I am already telling you in this particular point. Then the cell are sensitive over the whole region of visible region, and the typical cell has a maximum sensitivity of about 550 nanometer. The current output of the cell generally depend upon the wavelength of the incident radiation. So this is all about the characteristic of the photovoltaic cell. Now the disadvantages of the photovoltaic cell is what? The cell, the current produced by the cell cannot be directly amplified or amplified in this particular region, and therefore because of this the lower internal resistance is get generated. Next is what? The cell shows the fatigue effect. Fatigue means what? It current output decreases slowly during the continuous illumination. Means during the process there is irregular output of the current. Means there is no steady current flow. The fatigue effect can be minimized by careful selection of optimum level of illumination. Due to this mentioned characteristic and disadvantage, the cell are not used in the sophisticated spectrophotometer, and therefore it has some limitation all over the instrumentation. Next detector is phototube. This cell are also known as the photoemissive tube. In this tube, radiant energy falling on photosensitive solid surface causes the emission of the electron. The typical figure of the phototube is shown in this particular diagram. So it consists of an evacuated gas bulb. This is an evacuated glass bulb. Inside this bulb there is photoemissive cathode in form of half cylinder. This is the half cylinder. It is acting as a cathode. The cathode is also called as a photoemissive cathode, which is generally coated with the light sensitive material like cesium, potassium or silver. Such oxides of cesium, potassium or silver, a metal ring is inserted in the bulb which is act as an anode. This is a metal ring which is acting as an anode in this particular photo tube. A high voltage near about 90 volt is impressed between the anode and the cathode. This is a DC supply, and there is near about 90 voltage is applied between the cathode and anode. When light fall on a cathode surface, electrons are emitted by the cathode due to photoelectric effect. Suppose on this particular cell there is falling of a light, it emits the particular amount of electron, and this principle is nothing but the photoelectric effect. The liberated electrons are attracted by the anode. These liberated electrons are easily attracted by this anode surface and causing an electric current to flow through an external circuit, and it gives the flowing of the current through this external circuit. Due to the flow of this electron, there is occur in the IR drop across the resistor R. Here is the RL, that is nothing but the resistor R. There is IR drop, okay, which is proportional to the current. How much amount of current get flow due to the ejection of the electron and that is collected on the anode, it get effect on this particular resistor. Means it is having the directly proportional relationship with this resistor. This current is amplified and measured by the radio system. After that, the current is get amplified by the amplifier and the signal is provided towards this readout device. The current measures the radiation power of the light radiated, that is striking the photosensitive surface. Okay, the sensitivity of the phototube to the wavelength of the incident light is vary with the photosensitive material used in the tube. Which type of photosensitive material get used, on the basis of that how much amount of incident light is present, it get changed. Means sensitivity of this particular phototube is depending on which type of material is present in the cathode. Phototube are more sensitive than the photovoltaic cell, and the phototube have the high internal resistance and therefore their output current can be easily amplified. For this reason, these are employed for measuring the lower intensity as compared to that of photovoltaic cell. It is most of the case used in the instrumentation. Most important advantage of the phototube is it is used for measuring of the low intensities. Okay. Third detector is photomultiplier tube. It consists of photoemissive surface as well as many other surfaces that emits a cascade of electron from the photosensitive area. It is more sensitive than the previous detector, that is phototube, for the visible and ultraviolet region. It is mostly used in the spectrophotometer. A cross-sectional view of a photomultiplier tube is here. A photomultiplier tube consists of cathode and anode. Many additional electrodes, that is called as dynode. Here there is 9 dynode which is present in the series. All these are enclosed in that particular evacuated tube. A photoemissive cathode is in the form of half cylinder of the metal. Okay, the inner surface of the cathode is generally coated with the light sensitive material, that is oxides of cesium, potassium or silver. This is a cathode surface and which is coated with the cesium, potassium or silver metal. Most of the photomultiplier tube have the 9 dynodes. A dynode is an electrode which is coated with the cesium and emits a several electron, for near about 2 to 5 for each electron striking on the surface. Means suppose on the first surface there is 2 to 5 electron, then it get multiplied on the second surface. So on it is get reach up to the 9 dynodes and finally it is get collected by the anode. So when the light radiation gets striking on the surface of the cathode, it ejects the electron due to photoelectric effect. If they eject the electron, it is get collected by the first dynode. Okay, the first dynode is at 75 to 80 volt, more positive than the cathode. When electron striking on this particular first dynode, the first dynode at 70 to 100 voltage, there is ejection of 2 to 5 electron on its surface, and this secondary electron, when electron get followed on the secondary This secondary electron is turned or accelerated towards the second diode. Again, second diode voltage is about 75 to 100 volt, which is more positive than that of the first diode. Again, there is multiplicity of this particular 2 to 5 electron. Again, it is transferred towards the third, fourth, fifth, sixth, 7, 8, 9, and finally when there is collection of this electron at the 9 electrode, it is about nearly 10 raised to 6 to 10 raised to 7 on the surface of the 9th diode. The electron from the 9th diode, the collected electron from the 9th diode is received by the collector, that is the anode, and the resulting current is then amplified and measured and they transferred towards the readout device. The magnitude of the current is proportional to the radiant power of the radiation that is striking on the photocathode. How much amount of radiation gets strike on the surface of the photocathode? It is totally gives the total amount of current which is present in the photomultiplier tube. The overall amplification of the factor about 10 raised to 6, a photomultiplier tube must be carefully shielded from the stray light. So what is the advantages of the photomultiplier tube is what? The response time of the tube is near about 10 raised to minus 9 seconds. They are highly sensitive to the UV and visible region. As the output of the tube is only several milliampere, it can be used to measure the radiant power of about 200 times weaker than those of the measurable with the photoelectric cell and amplifier. So out of 3 detector, the photomultiplier tube is more sensitive and it required very small period of time to give the information to the amplifier. Therefore, most of the case photomultiplier tube is preferred as compared to that of photo tube and photovoltaic cell. So in the next lecture, we begins with the single beam photoelectric colorimeter, double beam spectrophotometer, and so on. Thank you.